Okay, we are now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Keith. Welcome everybody to this annual parish meeting of Liss Parish Council. This has obviously been held under very difficult circumstances, and it's very difficult to hold a public meeting by Zoom, but we'll see how we go. One of the consequences is that some of the papers that we provided are actually quite long because we have to provide a record of various things. What we will do is try and summarize the most important papers, but others it won't be possible to do so. However, they are all available on the Parish Council website, and one or two of them have been there for some while. If you want to raise any questions on anything that you see in the papers, then please do look at the website and do feel free to come back and let the clerk know, and we will do our very best to respond to you, since it's clearly not going to be possible always to do that this evening, except where people have signalled that they have questions to ask. So let's get the meeting underway. Can I turn to the clerk, Sarah Smith, and ask, do we have apologies?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Lindsley and Smith. Right,
thank you very much indeed. Okay, let me turn to item 2, the presentation of the Good Villager of the Year Award. As I'm sure many of you know, we do each year try and recognise a villager who has made an outstanding contribution to the life of the village. I should actually start with last year, when we didn't have a meeting because of the COVID restrictions, which meant that Emily Harker had been voted by us as the Liss Villager of the Year for 2020, but we weren't able to actually award her the cup to show them. And I am very sorry for Emily's sake. And Emily, who's now started a new job, is not able to be here this evening. But nevertheless, I would like to recognise what Emily did for us. She was an inspirational young person in an exceptional contribution to the Christmas Fair of 2019. It looked at one time that we wouldn't be able to get local businesses to support it because there were no volunteers to organise anything. But Emily came forward with the support of her employer, Tesco's, threw herself into the planning and organising of it, built really good relationships across the village, and she supported a number of the local voluntary groups, including on an entirely different tack, the launch of the men's shed. And from our point of view, she had a really transformational input into that event as well as the Christmas fair. So I would like to acknowledge how much we appreciated Emily Harker and what she contributed to the village last year. Turning to this year, it's been a very unprecedented year, and that was reflected in the fact that we got a very large number of people nominated for being considered for Villager of the Year. Very many of them were related to the actions taken by villagers to support people in the village in various ways who were affected by COVID. And we found that as a council, we wanted to recognise just what had been done right across the village, which meant that exceptionally, we decided that we would make an award to 3 villagers as Villager of the Year. So it is Villagers of the Year for this year. And that is a reflection, actually, of the very high standard of people who were put forward. Of course, it creates a problem for us. If you can see Sarah Smith, our clerk, she has a large cup looking very much like the FA Cup, which is what we normally give the Villager of the Year. We're not going to cut it into 3. So I think we may have to agree that you get it for 4 months each between you. But we are also going to provide everybody with a certificate, which we will be posting out tomorrow, which you can keep. And we think actually this would be a good practice for the future anyway, because the cup has to be returned at the end of the year. So we will provide a certificate. And of course, the 3 people I'm talking about, first of all, is Jenny Bennett, who was founder and coordinator of the Liss and Surrounding Villages Community Board on Facebook, and played a major role in bringing people together and providing support to the community through that. Not to mention a particular thing she did in terms of setting up the Halloween trail for children of the village to enjoy, which was a great success. Now, Jenny, in fact, is now a councillor, but all this reflects work that she was doing when she wasn't a councillor and before she came on board, and we very much appreciate what she did. Alongside her is Ruth Taylor, who also was founder and coordinator of the Liss Forest COVID Support Network, as well as administrator for the Liss and Surrounding Villages Community Board, and has also been an active member over the years for the Liss Forest Residents Association, and deputy chairman of the Save Our Temple Inn, for which I'm very grateful as a resident just off Forest Road. And again, there's another one who's thrown herself into helping communication across the village. And finally, I will mention Ella Townsend, who's been a supporter and fundraiser for the Crossover Centre during the first lockdown, established a charity bookshop in her garage, which I walked past many times with my dog, with the door always open, and interesting things in that. And through that device, she has raised thousands of pounds for the Crossover Centre, as well as funds for the Brownies and the Liss Food Bank. And she's also initiated a particular initiative by the Crossover to address period poverty amongst disadvantaged families. So we have 3 people there, all of whom we think are really worthy of being Villager of the Year. And I must say, the whole council was really impressed by the number and quality of nominations. And I'm really glad that we agreed to acknowledge not just 1, but 3. And I think that just reflects the way that Liss as a community has come together, but that certain people have stood out in terms of the way they've been the people who have brought everyone together during the course of this last year. So I'd like normally to ask everybody to clap and express their appreciation for this 3. I don't know whether we can do this online or not, but let's do that, because I would certainly like to express what I and all the other councillors felt about those 3 people. Thank you.
We need to unmute.
I need to unmute.
Yeah, you need to unmute.
Have I just muted?
No, you're fine. The rest of us do.
Oh, the rest of you do. Yes, quite. Yes, anybody who's on mute on that. Quite often when one gives the cup to the Village of the Year, the Village of the Year wants to say thank you or something of that sort. With 3 of you, that's probably a bit crowded, but I don't know whether anybody does want to say a word. Very sensibly, or keeping your head down. But your presence is appreciated just as much for that. So thank you very much indeed. Okay, let me move on then to item 3, which is parishioners' questions. What we did ask was that people would come forward with their questions in advance, because given the circumstances of this meeting, it's quite difficult to field random questions. Although if we can't answer things tonight, we will go away and try and provide an answer to people after the meeting as much as we can. I have a list of questions here, and the first one I've got is a question from Margaret Effenberg. Margaret, are you there? I think you may be on mute.
Okay, it's come back. Okay, it's come back again.
Right.
Can you hear me now?
I've got in general terms what your questions are.
Yeah.
But would you like to just amplify what the questions are? Because actually there's several questions here. So can we take them one at a time?
One at a time, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
One is on signs. What did you have to say about signs?
The signage, well, there's signage around that's not only sort of needs cleaning. I know some of these things that I've brought up, the council are not specifically involved in, they need to go to Hampshire County Council. But perhaps some of these questions that I'm asking could be chased. There's the signage in West Liss, for instance, around the Plestor. The road layout was changed some 13 years ago, and the signage is still up there. I think it's time it was taken down. At the Anglers Ash End, Princess Bridge, there's so much signage there that it really needs to be looked at, even if we are hoping at some stage to improve the entrance at that end of Anglers Ash. And there's also signage around that's filthy dirty. Can some of the signs be cleaned up?
Thank you very much for that. Nick Wilson is chair of our facilities committee. Would you like to take a first stab at responding to that?
Happy to do so. Yes, we'll be happy to ask our lengthsman to clean the road signs, and we'll just confirm with you, Margaret, which ones you think particularly need attention. As far as the actual removal of road signs, we're not able to remove Hampshire County Council signs, but we are working with them on a number of highways projects, and prompted by yourself, we will now address the decluttering needs that you've just described. So thank you for raising that.
So, Margaret, if you could provide us a precise list of the examples of problems that you found,
Yes.
then we'll see if we can take those up.
Fine, I'll email you, Nick, on those things.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Your second question was on benches.
That's correct.
I wasn't quite clear which benches you meant. I don't know whether you can clarify that.
Well, the benches, the bench outside Tesco's, for want of a better word, it's used by a lot of people, as you can well imagine, and there is one of the slats in the bench that has been broken and needs repairing, and also the bench is absolutely filthy dirty. Is there any way that could be cleaned, spruced up in some way? A bit of sort of like spring clean would be great. And that applies to benches at the entrance to Riverside Walk. There are benches there, two benches that need to be sort of cleaned up. I have cleaned them once, but they need more than perhaps what I can do myself.
Right, thank you very much.
Again, these things seem maybe a little bit pernickety, but it's the presentation, the entrance to Riverside Walk needs to be looked at. And I feel that these are most important for visitors coming into the national park. I think that we need to give that a bit of time.
Thank you very much for that. I think we may have two different situations, the Tesco's bench and the Riverside Walk ones. I don't know whose land the Riverside Walk benches are on. Nick, are you able to help us at all?
Yeah. Just to say more generally that we do have an ongoing program to varnish benches, replace missing slats. It's a sort of bit like the Forth Road Bridge in that it's never ending. We will certainly have a look at the ones in Riverside Walk, ask our groundsman also to check all the benches on land for which we're responsible. The one outside Tesco's isn't the parish council's, but we can see what we can get done there. We'll discuss it with Tesco's and consider whether we can help in any way. What I would say is when we come to an item later in the meeting, when we're looking at the action plan, we do have in mind some much more substantial improvements to the village centre, and hopefully we might have rather more than one dilapidated bench sometime in the future. But thank you again for raising that.
Indeed.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. And our next question was on the mosaic.
Again, this is an important thing that happened in the village some years ago. And since moving to Hillbrow, let's put it that way, I've been walking through Newman Collard a lot. And the mosaic is in a terrible state, which I mentioned quite a few months ago now in a report. I just feel that it needs to be covered up, even in the short term, to protect it from the weather. It's absolutely filthy dirty. All the tiles are breaking up and obviously need repair. But until that's done, is there some way that we can prevent further decay by covering it up, even with plastic, a sheet of plastic, something on top?
Thank you very much for that. As I'm sure you've noticed in our action plan for this coming year, the restoration of the mosaic is indeed one of the actions that we want to take. But I'll just pass over to Nick Wilson again about this point about how to protect it in the interim.
Yeah.
Well, just on the longer term, we are actually in discussion with an expert who would be willing to carry out restoration, subject to our agreeing a satisfactory price and to getting support from some volunteers to help. And we're really pleased to say that we've got a store of mosaic tiles which was spare after the original mosaic was created. So hopefully it will be all systems go probably in late spring or early summer when the weather is better for that sort of project. There'll also be an item on this project at next Monday's meeting of the Facilities Committee. So anyone who's interested in the mosaic would be very welcome to watch that presentation and discussion on YouTube. But the key suggestion from Margaret about plastic sheeting, I think we should activate ASAP. So thank you for that. We would, I think, move forward rather quicker on this project. I've been prompted by more than one person of importance within the parish, but obviously during COVID it's been difficult to make progress on it, but we shall.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And your final question was about office reopening.
Yes.
You just wanted to know when we were going to reopen.
Yes, it seems to be.
Well, we are very much. Sorry, Margaret, I interrupted you.
No, just go. Yeah, that's fine, Roger. Go on.
We're very much still governed by government guidance, which is really interpreted for us by the Hampshire Association of Local Councils and indeed the National Association. The guidance is very clear that at the moment we must still be trying to work from home if we can, and that the office shouldn't be open. We'll see how we go. I mean, I think over the next couple of months, there'll be much greater clarity about the use of the office. But at the moment, we are very much guided by the guidance we've been given.
Fine.
Okay, Margaret?
Yes, fine.
If I can move on. Sorry. Right, thank you. Claire Pope. Is Claire Pope with us?
Not with us, no.
No. She asked a question which I understand was asked who is responsible for footpaths around Liss. It can be difficult to stay safe when walking or running on the roads where it seems there should be footpaths. This would include linking the garden centres of the village with the footpath. Not quite sure which garden centres she means. Does she mean Hilliers? Probably. In general, of course, footpaths are the responsibility of Hampshire County Council, but we are starting work at looking at the centre of the village in terms of general access, safety and environmental improvements, which will include looking at footpaths. We are talking to Hampshire County Council, and indeed the scope of that project is likely to be wider than the immediate village centre and will include other spots as well. For road, for example, it is been an issue for very many people in various ways for pedestrians there. So this is something we can factor into our discussions with the Hampshire County Council. I think there are clearly one or two places in the village where there is not good footpaths and where people have to go into the roads. Some inevitably on roads which simply aren't suitable for footpaths, but clearly there are some roads where you wonder why the footpath sort of peters out, as you might say. That's my own view, but it's certainly I think we could do more. And certainly I seem to remember that Hilliers and the pet shop up there, that very last bit of the road to them doesn't have a footpath, not from Prince's Bridge onwards. I don't know whether that's what's been referred to there. But anyway, if it can be left with us to raise as part of our discussions with Hampshire County Council, we will do so. Okay, thank you. Luke Harwood. Is he? Yes, I got you as being present.
Yeah,
Luke
is with us, so I've just asked him to unmute.
And I'm also, because it covers much the same subject, after Luke has presented his question, I'd like to turn to Sean Booty to also put his take on a very similar issue, and then we'll try and answer the two of them together, if we may. So can I turn to Luke first?
Yeah, I've just asked him to unmute. So if you can unmute yourself, Luke, and ask the question. No, should we go to Sean?
Sean, yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Sean. Do speak then.
Okay, yeah, it's just really concerning the amount of dog mess in the Newman Collard. For many, many, many years, I think everybody knows how terrible it is up there. With the inclusion of like the new children's play area that's been there, all the children's play areas, the football pitches, and obviously with outdoor sport about to start again, it's just worse than ever, the dog mess up there now. Ever since, even when the bags were put in, the free bags, it just doesn't seem to do anything. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. For many, many years, it's always just been talked about, and I think it's about time really that the rule was brought in that all dogs should be on leads at the Newman Collard. There's so many other places in the village that people can walk their dogs and let them run free, etc. But why should the Newman Collard, which attracts the most amount of children and adults and users in the whole village, why can't that just be a dogs on lead zone?
Right, thank you very much for that, Sean. I recognise that. Luke is still on mute, is he?
Luke is still on mute, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's deal with this general issue of dogs, which it both touch upon the situation at Newman Collard. Again, can I turn to you, Nick, and to kick off on this one?
Yeah, if I may just, since I have Luke's question by me, he also was concerned about Newman Collard and what he and his son, who play football there, have found in terms of piles of poo. He's suggesting that maybe we could be putting up signs like there is no dog poo fairy type signs that we have in Liss Forest. He's also suggested that there's a rather more technological possibility of giving the poos a DNA test and tracing it, which apparently has been done in, I hate to say this, in barking. Wouldn't it? Having been slightly frivolous for a moment, I would say that we do absolutely agree about the seriousness of this continuing problem, particularly for families with young children. We've looked at it in the council and with the trust that is responsible for managing the Newman Collard playing fields. Parish councillors previously put up anti-fouling campaign posters. Sadly, all but one of them were pulled down, and we've provided more and more dog poo bag dispensers to try and meet people's needs. I think we'd all like to find a silver bullet with which to deal with this problem. The question, I think, is whether a legal requirement to have dogs on leads would actually do the trick. It could be argued the type of person who allows their dog to foul against the law is also likely to allow their dog to run freely, even if that is no longer legal. As regards Newman Collard specifically, I suggest we look again at the options at a meeting of the trust, which I and 2 parish council colleagues are members, and as well as Sean, I believe you're a trustee yourself.
I am, yes.
I think a key issue would be enforcement. The parish council just doesn't have the capacity to enforce a requirement if there was one. It has to be a designated trained person. However, if the trust does think that a bylaw requiring dogs to be on leads would really help, we are open to considering that suggestion. As regards dog filing more widely around the village, I know it's currently of considerable concern. It's been in a lot of posts on social media. So if anyone has any brilliant ideas, practical suggestions, we'd be very interested to hear. One suggestion's been school children producing placards like the ones they've done to discourage speeding, but there may be some more radical things we just haven't thought of. We can also look at what other parishes have done. So I'm sorry I can't produce the magic bullet, and I do think we just need to consider whether Sean's particular suggestion would be effective, but we'd certainly be happy to consider it.
I think it's just from the evidence of I take my children on the school run, and it's the people that just let their dogs straight off the lead, and then they're straight looking at their phones. You know, they've got no idea where their dog is, and they've got no idea what their dog is doing. When they're actually on the lead, everybody knows that their dog has stopped. You know, because the dog stops, right, okay, it's doing something, and it's on the lead and they're right next to it. It's the amount of people that are walking around and they're just talking to people, or they're on their phones and they've just got no idea that it's happening. You know, 99% of people are responsible, and I think that anyway, if there is some type of law or you know, unwritten, whatever it may well be, of all dogs on leads, the dog owners will actually police themselves, you know, and it will become a social no-no that other people have got their dogs off the leads because they know that they're causing trouble. You know, it could well be that people police themselves.
Sean, can I just
Okay,
ask?
Sean, thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry, Nick.
Could I just ask, Sean, is this something that has this particular suggestion been discussed amongst the trustees? Is it a request from the trust, or is it just your suggestion?
No, this was my reason for actually joining the trust 2 years ago, because I manage one of the football teams, as I mentioned in my question. The 6 football teams about to start playing down there, under 7s, under 8s, under 11s, under 12s, plus 2 men's football teams. And I just thought it's a perfect opportunity for them to come back and for this problem to actually be sorted, rather than it just being passed from year to year to year and nothing ever being done about it.
I'm very happy to talk to the chair of the trust.
Okay, fantastic.
And let's see, I think she's thinking, because we haven't been able to have a meeting, of having one by Zoom, and maybe we can pick it up there.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, she knows my feelings about it anyway, so.
I'm sure she does.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you.
I don't want to feel that the parish council is ducking out of this, but as far as Newman Collard is concerned, the trust needs to take the initial action on that, since it's their job to manage it.
Okay, they always mention Liss Parish Council, you see. So
I know, and it sounds as though we're all passing the buck here. But I have to say, I'm 100% with you on this, and as a purely personal view, I really do wonder whether trying to enforce keeping dogs on leads may assist. It won't solve the problem, though.
No, but if even half it would be fantastic.
Right. Now, I noticed that since you were speaking, I think Luke has now come online there.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Are you with us, Luke?
Yes, I am.
Right. Sorry, we came to you before and you were muted, but
Yeah, sorry, I was away.
yeah, okay. Would you like to, we've looked at your question, and indeed Nick Wilson specifically read out bits of your question, so we've effectively taken it, but would you like to add anything further by way of a question?
Not really. I mean, I just thought maybe I would sit out there with my son and a thermos and a pair of binoculars one day, and maybe people would like to do the same if they feel so strongly about it. Encouraging some sort of vigilance amongst those who want to.
Yeah, I've got no problems at all with that.
Yeah.
It's how do we approach?
Keep an eye
Okay.
on the dog walkers, but yeah, I mean the signs. There's no dog poo fairy is quite a good one.
Yeah.
So do you think it's something akin to speed watch? We should also have poo watch.
Yeah.
Possibly, you know.
And then we can go and pick it up after them, and then give their property back to them.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It is all about the fact that one has to put an awful lot of effort into enforcement, and this is a real problem in this area. And I personally feel it's not that people are ignorant of the need to avoid dog poo, but actually a lot of people, sadly, just don't seem to care about it very much, in my own view on this. And I don't know how you get to those people. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. We will take that away. We will discuss it with the trust. We will think what we can do on other land besides Newman Collard, because that's not the only place where there's an issue.
Oh, no, absolutely.
But it is true. It is true that there is a particular issue on the playing fields where people are actually going to be using them for matches or playing games or whatever. And clearly that's where we're all going to have to pay attention in the first instance.
Okay, lovely.
Thank you very
Cheers.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those are all the questions that I've got. Can I just check with the clerk? Do we have any other questions? Sarah?
Sorry. No, we don't have any further questions.
Right, thank you very much indeed then on that. Let me move on to approval of the minutes of March 2019. This is because we didn't have a meeting last time, and I'm not going to dwell on these minutes. I've looked through them to see if there's anything that we really ought to just comment on, but I think not. If anybody wants to look back 2 years, then do so on the website if you don't have a copy of the actual minutes in front of you. Several of the ongoing projects will come up later in the agenda anyway on that. So what we normally do at this point is ask somebody to move the adoption of the minute and then somebody to second it. That's assuming that nobody's found anything significant by way of error, which again, given the fact they're 2 years old, I'm not expecting people to remember that. So subject to things being a true and correct record, could I have somebody moving adoption? Can I see any hand from one of our members? Thank you,
Leanne and Rob.
To second it. Thank you very much indeed. As I said, I sound as though I'm trying to avoid looking at these, but really do please have a look at them on the website. And if you've got any queries that arise from them, do come back to us via the clerk, email her, and we will do our very best to provide an answer on that. Let me move on then to item 5, the 2020 annual report. Although we didn't have a meeting, I did write a report so that one could see what had been going on during the year. And like the report for this year, it was essentially a description of what had been going on in the village. And certainly in that year, we were very pleased that we had done work on play equipment on the Riverside Walk. We had replaced the Litch Gate on the Old School Road and the Newman Collard playing fields. Done some good work, I think, in trying to enhance the drainage on Newman Collard playing fields, which has been carried forward because it's an ongoing project in many ways. And it was during that year we also managed to get some funding from Hampshire County Council for pedestrian courtesy crossings on Station Road, which again I'll come to in a moment. We kicked off also in that year, starting to look at Forest Road and the problems of that road, of traffic and difficulties for pedestrians there. And again, that is now built into our work programme as something we're trying to do. And otherwise, what I would pick out is that was the year we started our new website. And do please use the website. I think it's very informative about what we're doing. And if you wish to understand what the Parish Council is about and whether you think we're doing the right things or the wrong things or enough or not enough, start off by looking at the website, because that's the place to try to describe what we're doing. And it was also during that year that new members came onto the council, including Claire Williams and Sheila Baldwin, who are with us now. But Ian James and Maggie Nibbs also came, but had to drop out because of other commitments on that. So that was a year ago, and I just give you some of the highlights. I'll spend a bit more on what's happening in my report for this year. So if you're content, I shall go on to the report for 2021. If anybody, though, has a question which arises from my report, I am happy to take that question. And if it shades back into the year previously, well, I'm not going to have a sharp cutoff between the 2 years. So if you're happy, I'll move on to the Chairman's report for 2021. Now, attached to this report is what is also item 7, which is our action plan for 2021-22. So I will shade into that. But the report really highlights what a difficult year it has been for everybody. It's been a very difficult year for the Parish Council. Our parish office has been closed, and we've been extraordinarily reliant on the staff having to work from home, which I think they've done magnificently, frankly, and have kept things going. And our website has also been important over that time. Sadly, as I'm sure you know, we've had to close some facilities, particularly the Village Hall and the Pavilion, which were not used at all during the first lockdown. But then later on, we've been able to open them for on a very restricted basis for those activities which basically were socially required, like the RVS using the kitchen to provide meals to the elderly and so on. But nevertheless, it has been a significant loss to the village on that. But one of the things that has been happening during this year is that the community infrastructure levy, which is the money which arises from development in the village, is beginning to come through in quite significant amounts. And so, for example, the development of what is now known in estate agent parlance as Andler's Wood is now providing us with quite substantial sums, and we do have an initial payment of £140,000 from that development, and we are likely to receive a similar amount later. This we need to consider how we should spend that on projects, and it's something that we clearly need to engage with the community before we rush off and spend all that money on parties and other such things. It is quite important that when you consider that we have a number of ambitious projects that we do want to carry forward, but we do need to try and spend that money as wisely as possible. We have, though, with other smaller amounts of money, some of it from developer contributions, been able to overhaul the play equipment at the Riverside Walk, to provide refurbished toilets in the Village Hall, to provide a new Patang court or terrain, as it's known in the jargon, which on the Liss Forest Recreation Ground, when the old one was lost as a result of the redevelopment at the Temple Inn. We've been able to pay for a path providing greater accessibility to Liss Pavilion and improvements to the pavements outside the pavilion. We've been able to initiate a new rolling allotments tenancy agreement, which seems to have gone down very well with the tenants. And we've been working on various projects for the future, which really appear in our 2021-22 action plan, which I'll come to in a moment. What I would just like to say, though, that as I mentioned, we had 1 or 2 changes in our councillors, but we've been very pleased to welcome Jeanette Lowe, Rob Finn and Jenny Bennett as councillors to join the council. They're all new. They're all reached that stage where I hope they're not regretting it too much. And we're extremely pleased, and they are to have them, and they are extremely welcome. And I think we have people who are going to make a considerable contribution to the life not just of the council, but to the village as a whole, which after all is what the council is there for on that. And again, I really will just finish, my report really mentions the way that in the office, Sarah Smith as the parish clerk, Liz Keeling as assistant clerk, and Liz Ford as our responsible finance officer have made a huge contribution to the village in terms of the way they've kept everything going in very difficult circumstances, working from home, working extra hours, all of them, in order to keep things going. You may think that because certain activities in the village hall, etc., have stopped, that would make life easier. On the contrary, just keeping all the other things that we're involved with going in these circumstances has proved very difficult, and we've done our best through that office staff to try and keep our services going for everybody across the village. So actually, it has been really quite a busy year for the council in various ways. Difficult for us to meet. We've met only by Zoom, and it's not the same as meeting face to face, and it is difficult to communicate. But I hope we've managed to do it as best we can. One of the things we've laid out is the fact that we have an action plan each year in which we try and set out in headline form what it is we want to achieve the year. The one for this current year, which is coming to an end, by and large, we've achieved most things, not quite all. 1 or 2 things have not been possible because of COVID, but I think I'm fairly pleased that we've been able to make a good fist of it. But we have a number of things that we want to do for this coming year, and in particular, apart from, if you like, keeping the day-to-day going, we want to initiate a number of projects. One of them, for example, is a village gateway project, which we're talking to the Highways Authority about putting in gateway features that help define the village and help to perhaps define the area in which people should slow down. We're looking at how we can develop proposals for the school zone in terms of traffic, and also for a crossing point across Hillbrow Road to the Anders Wood development. Difficult to get that right, and we're looking at that extremely carefully. We're also starting work with Hampshire to look at what we can do along Forest Road. One of our ambitious projects for last year that we were not able to deliver was for improvements for the recreation facilities on the West Liss recreation ground. They are in a poor state, but also we have ambitions to do something a bit better than what is there now. We've put in for developer funding for that. We were not successful last year, but we're still asking the South Downs National Park Authority as to whether they will support us on this, as well as the fact that, as I indicated earlier, we got rather more money coming our way anyway. That's one of the things that we are considering whether we ought to spend money on. But again, although the community has indicated in general terms this is something we ought to do, clearly we need to discuss it with people further, exactly what should go there and how we should do it. And that's something that hopefully we can get underway soon. We're also well on the way to developing proposals for a small community garden on Mill Road, just by Woodbourne Close and the grass area there. It's an area of land owned by East Hampshire District Council. It's not doing anything at the moment. Government has been trying to encourage the provision of what they've called pocket parks. We weren't successful in getting a grant under the government scheme, but we have managed to get money from East Hants and others from developer contributions to put forward a small scheme for local recreation facilities there. And this is something that we hope to work up. And again, with a considerable support from people, from residents in the neighbouring houses there, this is something we hope to get underway in the next year. We're also looking at really two slightly more ambitious areas of activity. One is, there's no doubt that our village centre is looking a bit tired. It's not just the bench, but that bench is part of it. And we have been talking about how we can try and draw up broader plans for trying to enhance both the environmental quality, but also the safety and the convenience of our centre. We've been talking to the Highway Authority how we may do that. We've been looking at how we might be able to put funding, firstly for an initial study to see what could be done, and then in due course how we might put together money for a scheme to actually deliver something there. And we might be able to do something that's wider than just the village centre area. This is something that's going to take a while to unfold, but we do feel that the village centre really does need something done to it, and probably with the best organisation to try and be a catalyst on that. It's going to involve a lot of other organisations, particularly East Hampshire, also local businesses and the district council as well. So watch this space, because we will in due course be launching a consultation on that to see what people feel about that. And finally, we're very aware that Liss is very good at having a number of organisations to support people. And we've heard today how people who've been awarded Villager of the Year have taken the initiative in developing opportunities. One of the things that we feel as a council, though, is how do you join all these things up? And that doesn't always happen as well as it might. So we want to talk to established organisations and others about how we can support organisations, particularly to work together to try and enhance what I might call the social welfare of the village. It's something which as a council we've tended to look at providing hard facilities in the past, but clearly we feel we could do what several other councils do in trying to help with a bit of support and coordination for some of these other initiatives. So we have broad plans for the future of the council, as well as just enhancing the general quality of our services. Having developer contribution money coming into us will help, but we're limited by our own manpower and woman power, and we've got to be realistic about what we can achieve. So again, we put this down in an action plan. That action plan is available on the website, and we would be grateful for comment on it. It has been available previously, but it will be, if people could look at it on the website and comment by the 19th of April to Sarah as the clerk, drop her an email or something of that sort. If you've got any comments, do let us know, because it is very much a question of trying to do what people in the village are looking for us to do. We obviously have our own ideas, but we do need that input. So I'm speaking too long, but that gives you a flavour of what we've been doing over the year and also what we hope to do for the future. If anybody has questions, and I do stress questions arising out of that, I'd be happy to take them if need be. Everybody not backed by that, I suspect, on that, but I do encourage you to look at the action plan though, because it's quite important. Can I move on to Claire Williams, our chairman of the Finance Committee, who has produced a report which shows what's been happening to our finance over the year. Claire.
Hello, everybody. The written finance report either is or will be available for anyone to view online. And I appreciate that finance reports are kind of tedious things to read, so I will just give you the edited highlights. For the current financial year, which runs April 2020 to March 2021, we set a precept of £218,208 for the village, which amounts to £84.42 per annum for each Band D dwelling in the village. We received the money as usual, and our expenditure has been largely within budget for the year. So the effect of COVID hasn't meant that we've spent particularly more or particularly less than we would have done without it. What has been significantly impacted is our revenues have been reduced on the pavilion and the village hall because they've been shut for effectively a year. Fortunately, very fortunately, we've managed to recover some of that income through grants from East Hampshire District Council, for which we are very grateful. We have funded some local organisations during the year, which I will read out to you. The East Hampshire Area CAB, the Triangle Community Centre, the Crossover, the RVS Luncheon Club, the Liss Historical Society, First Liss Scouts, Home Starts Butser, Liss AFC Juniors, Rake Village Hall, Lupin, the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Victim Support, St Mary's Church, the King's Arms Young Carers, the Liss Village Club, and Liss Men's Shed. And we supported them through the Parish Council grant structure, which we will run this year as well. And we encourage local organisations to apply for these grants when the grant application window is open. As Roger mentioned, we received a bunch of Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy funding, which amounted to £31,500, which we used on the new pen tank terrain, the refurbishment of the toilets in the village hall, new accessible pathways to the pavilion, and to sort out the drainage on the Newman Collard playing field. For the next financial year, which runs from April 2021 to March 2022, we've set a precept of £224,250, which amounts to an £86.69 per annum for each Band D dwelling. That's a 2.67% increase in the previous year. We worked very, very hard to make sure that the increase was as low as it could possibly be. We have already received £32,500 worth of external funding from the Section 106 and Community Infrastructure Levy funding, which will be used on the Mill Road Community Gardens, courtesy crossings and pavement improvements outside the pavilion, and a new pathway to the Pentank terrain. And that's about it for the finance report.
Thank you very much, Claire. Has anybody got a question at all for Claire? Right, thank you very much, everybody, on this. Right, can I move on to item 9? This is a statutory requirement to inform everybody of the attendance of councillors at meetings. If I can turn to the clerk, Sarah Smith. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Since March 2020, when the last annual parish meeting would normally have met, The Parish Council has met virtually via Zoom a total of 8 times. Councillors Hargreaves, Budden, Baldwin, Lindsley, MacDonald, Smith, Wilson and Williams attended all 8 meetings. Councillor Gerard attended 4 of a possible 8 meetings. Councillor Finn attended 4 out of a possible 5 meetings since co-option in October. Councillor Lowe attended 3 out of a possible 5 meetings since co-option in October. Councillor Bennett attended 2 of a possible 2 meetings of council following co-option in January. Councillor Nibbs attended 4 of a possible 7 meetings prior to her resignation earlier this month. Councillor Edwards attended 2 out of a possible 4 meetings prior to her resignation in November. And lastly, Councillors Dodds and James attended the 1 meeting of council held prior to their resignations in June and July, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Okay, let's move on to something slightly different. If I can turn to the update from Hampshire County Council, we have with us, I believe, Russell Hoppenheimer, our county councillor. He has provided a written report, which he always does for our meetings, and which is always extremely helpful. But Russell, if I could ask just you to speak to that, since not everybody will have seen it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Russell?
Happy to speak to my report. But can I firstly congratulate all the villagers of the year and thank them for everything they've done. And yes, looking back over this year, I'm obviously going to start with COVID. It's been a really hard year for so many people, but we're not out of it yet, but we can see the end is in sight. So I think we can look back and be glad that we all stuck together and we got through it together. You know, the way that Hampshire County Council worked with the districts and with local groups, local parishes and local voluntary groups was quite amazing. And I do think it played a big part in giving Hampshire relatively good outcomes. We had lower infection rates in Hampshire than other neighbouring counties. And I think it's because we all did what we needed to do. So, you know, I think that's something we can all be proud of in a way. It has been difficult for Hampshire County Council to do things like road repairs and keeping household waste and recycling centres open with all of the COVID restrictions and the social distancing, but we found a way through. And I'm glad that the HWRCs are now open. People have got used to the booking system and the potholes are being fixed. I'm going to mention the financial costs of the pandemic because you will all know that Hampshire was already facing budget shortfalls. Well, as a result of COVID, we've had lost income and extra costs. So the budget shortfall has grown. But despite that, we're in a much better position than many other county councils around the country. We've still got reserves and that enables us to invest. So we've got an enormous school building programme, 68 million going into schools over the next 4 years, 118 million is going into roads, and in particular 18 million for walking and cycling. And we've got 33 million going into decarbonisation schemes. That's part of our climate strategy. And one scheme that I really want to give a plug for today, if I may, is Solar Together. This is a Hampshire County Council scheme, and we do it in partnership with a company that organises a reverse auction. So we want as many people as possible to register. And you've still got time because the deadline's 26th of March. And it's really worth thinking about. You can get solar panels. If you've got solar panels already, you can get a battery through the scheme. And the more people that sign up, then the bigger the bulk discount we'll get. And if it goes well, then we'll do a second wave and a third wave. So it could play a really big part in getting us to net zero in Hampshire. I've mentioned in my report that children's services in Hampshire are still rated outstanding in all areas. And I think that's a great tribute to our social workers in this county. I've mentioned the funding we're putting into apprenticeships in Hampshire. As we come out of this recession caused by the lockdown, we really need to get people into jobs. Apprenticeships are not just for young people, they're for people of all ages. And I think the more apprenticeships we can encourage companies to set up, the better. And actually the budget was quite helpful to apprenticeships as well. The Supporting Families programme is one of my proudest things that we do at Hampshire County Council, helping families to get back on track and make sure kids stay in school. And again, something we do quite well as a partnership working model. I want to just mention the local transport plan, which is going to be a big deal this year. We've started consulting on it already. I think that the councillors have done quite well at pushing walking and cycling to the front of that local transport plan. But we need the public to react to that, to engage with that, and to actually say, yes, this is what we want, because it will make quite a difference, reallocating road space to walking and cycling. So when we come to consult on that later this year, I hope everyone will agree that that's what we should do. And then I've mentioned my councillor grants. I gave, I think, 2 things Liss related. Home Start Butser support families in Liss with my grant, and also I gave the school, the junior school, some money for some dining tables which they needed. And I am looking forward to supporting Crossover as soon as my grant round reopens on the 1st of April, 2 weeks from now. I've been in touch with Leanne about that, and yes, you know, I'm sure there will be other projects that I will want to support in Liss as well. So that was everything from my county report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody got any questions? Okay, fine, I'll leave that there then. Can I move on then to an update from the East Hampshire District Council, where we're fortunate to have both our district councillors, Keith Budden and Russell again, present. Is one of you going to kick off?
I think that falls to me, Roger. Normally by going last at the annual parish meeting, I have the unenviable job of standing between people and a pint of beer in the pub next door. This year I have the unenviable task of standing between people and their cup of cocoa, but there you go. I will try and keep this reasonably brief. I think the first thing, it won't surprise people to say the main focus of the year has been the coronavirus, of course, and all that's involved. I've, as many of you know, I'm also chairman of East Hampshire District Council this year for the 2nd year running, and I have to say I'm immensely proud of all of the staff at EHDC and the way that they've coped with the year of having to work from home, which has been a strange situation, but they've all risen to the task magnificently. And I'm particularly proud of the record of East Hampshire District Council with regard to the COVID grants, both to people who are in hardship and to businesses, in that we have substantially beaten the government targets for paying out in timescale. So we've paid out very quickly in that time, and we've also succeeded in getting as many homeless people as we can off of the streets during the period, apart from those who've been offered alternative accommodation but chosen to remain living on the streets as a lifestyle choice. And obviously that, you know, we have to respect their choice on that. But I'm very proud of the way we've handled all of that. But whilst I'm talking about COVID grants, I would just like to remind any businesses who might be listening that the application for the Corona Business Grants applications closes on the 31st of March, so 2 weeks today. So if you are a local business and you've not yet put in your claim for Corona's business grant for your business interruption, then please do make sure you get it in the next 14 days, otherwise you're going to be too late. and unfortunately that's a government imposed deadline, so there's nothing we can do to be flexible on that. So please do make sure you get it in on time. If you've got any questions about whether you might be eligible or not, then please do contact the grants team at East Hants and they'll be delighted to help you. On a similar vein, I would say that we've also, where we're possible, we've given free parking at vaccination centres. Wherever the vaccination centres have EHCC car parks around them or close to them, then we've given free parking in those car parks for people having their vaccinations. And I'm very pleased to say that that's been well received, and I don't think it's been abused, which is also reassuring to see. I think the other thing that's worth pointing out is, and perhaps not so well known, is the fact that the East Hants District Council has run a COVID helpline during the whole year, and we've still got that helpline running. It's admittedly taking far less calls now than it was in the early days of the COVID crisis, but nonetheless it remains there for people to call. And we've also been working with all of the local food banks, including the food bank in Liss, to ensure that they've had provisions so that they're able to provide for people who've needed to make use of the food banks during the COVID crisis. On a more parochial level, I would say that obviously I'm very pleased that East Hants is working with the Parish Council on the Mill Road Community Garden, which Chairman mentioned earlier. And I think that's going to be a very great project to take over what has been, frankly, a very derelict piece of land for probably as long as I can remember. So it'd be good to see that land put to more positive use. And I've also given out my council grants across the village, including grants to Crossover Centre and to the Triangle Community Centre. And it's great to see Georgie from Crossover here this evening. On the subject of funding, I'd just like to finish by saying that East Hampshire on the 1st of April is opening up applications for the next share of our £1 million worth of East Hampshire District Council grants. So the applications open on the 1st of April. We've set some criteria this year that applications must support at least one of 3 community benefits, either supporting positive mental health in residents, in particular young people, reducing social isolation in residents, in particular older people, and supporting the recovery of residents from the coronavirus pandemic. And so I would urge all of the local groups who may wish to try and apply for some of that money to get an application form on the 1st of April and get it back as soon as you can. Because obviously if we don't get applications from this, we're not going to be able to spend any of that money in this, and I'd love to see some of that money spent in this. And certainly and I'm sure Russell too would be very happy to endorse any applications that come in from organisations in this to recommend that they receive funding. Russell and I don't have a decision-making role in that, but I'm sure that we'd be very happy to give our councillors recommendations to any such applications. That concludes all I have to say. I don't know whether Russell's got anything finally you'd like to add from a district council perspective.
I think that was an incredibly thorough report. And the only thing I want to add is that I want to just pay tribute to you, Keith, because Keith's been chairman of the district council for 2 years now. I believe the longest serving chairman in the history of the council. And he's just done an outstanding job, particularly over the last year when it's been really difficult. Chairing meetings on Zoom and Skype for Business, which we were using for a long time, is very difficult, and Keith's held it together. I think Liss can be really proud of Keith, and I've been amazed and so impressed and so proud to be a co-councillor with Keith during this time. So just wanted to acknowledge you for the excellent work you've done.
Thank you, Russell. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. I think that's well worth saying about Keith, who certainly, when he took on being chairman, didn't expect to be asked to be there for 2 years rather than 1. So has manfully risen to the occasion. Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. That brings us to the end of the agenda. I'm sorry, at a Zoom meeting, it's difficult to generate the same raw excitement as you get from a face-to-face meeting in the village hall. But we've done our best to make sure that everybody is aware of some of the things that are going on and a little bit about what the parish council is about. If you do have any concerns, any of you who are out there watching, you feel they've not been touched upon or questions haven't been answered, do come back to us responding to the parish clerk by email. All the details are on the website. We will do our very best to respond to anything that's brought up. And as I said, for the action plan in particular, if you can comment on that by the 19th of April, that would be very helpful indeed. So one final thank you to everybody who's participated this evening. I do appreciate not only the members of the council, but the members of the public who have come along and stuck the course for this meeting as well. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you very much and good night.
Good night.